Hello? Yeah. I have a question for Joseph. Most of the discussion here was about managing people with neurodivergence. Do you have any tips about when your manager is actually a neurodivergent and he has meltdowns and he's being very awkward and he's being very inappropriate and even toxic and he's undiagnosed? I mean, it's a loaded question, obviously, but what to do there? Just flee?
Well, first off, if he's undiagnosed, he's most likely either unaware, so it's a difficult thing. So the first thing I would suggest is start having a conversation, whether anonymously or subvertly, having a conversation. Start today. I went to this really interesting discussion about neurodiversity, and where Joseph spoke about this and that and this. I mean, get him engaged, get him to start thinking about it. I mean, at that point as well, you will at some point will have to gently have the conversation with him about his behavior. But first, I would say start creating the conversation where he becomes aware and starts thinking about it. Maybe start seeing those particular signs. The good doctor is a good example of a conversational piece, as well as an article that you've read. Be careful with the good doctor, though, because many in the autistic community object to it. There's certain things that are definitely good about it, but there are other things that are bad about it. So again, it's the same thing when you start talking about a TikToker or something you saw on YouTube. There are really good creators out there, and there are really bad creators out there. So you have to find the good ones, and you have to, again, start creating conversations about it. Maybe purposely watch it on your laptop in your break time, where he's within earshot. So that way, again, you start the conversation. You have to be strategic, particularly if you want to prevent a meltdown. And again, use neutralizing language. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
And try to get support from HR.
He's actually the CEO, so that's not that good.
Then get him to invite me. Any other questions?
Hi. You've talked a lot about, let's say, accommodations and leveling the playing field to give everyone the same opportunity and get the best out of people. What can you say about focusing on the strengths of neurodiverse people and certain things they may be able to do better than others?
In what regards, though?
In terms of creativity, in terms of certain tasks they may be better at.
So spike profiles. Spike profiles are becoming the tool to use. So there's a couple sites that you can go to in regards to spike profiles. Start utilizing spike profiles. Otherwise, use the SWOT method. And a good way to use the SWOT method is, and we're also in regards to responsibilities, you can do it in two ways. The first way is, I'm going to give to Lena here and say, I want you to do a SWOT profile about yourself, and I'm going to do a SWOT profile about you. Doesn't have to be immediately. Today's Monday, we'll meet on Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll have a discussion about it. You're going to compare a bringing of the minds of what she thinks her strengths and challenges are, and what you think her strengths and challenges are. And then you start the conversation. Okay? Another way of doing it is a different way of, what do you think your responsibilities are in this task or in this job? Again, same principle. Today's Monday, go write about it and come back to me on Thursday. I'm going to do the same. Again, meeting of the minds. And you start discussing about where they think their responsibilities are, and you think where their responsibilities are, because there might be a lack of clarity. Does that help? You had a question.
It's actually to Nina. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
System, yes, it had a huge impact on. Exactly. Yeah, we discussed what about it was problematic, and the top of the list actually was going to be having a quiet room. We have sent a request to HR. They're trying to find us some space. So we would have one room that would have less lighting. It would be a quiet room. You could drop in there anytime when the open office environment got a bit too much. That has been out of priority the last month, actually, because we have increased the days in the office and there's more people in the office. So we thought that a little quiet space would make a huge difference.
Yep.
Yes?
Thank you. A question to ladies, actually. I know it's early days, but did you have any feedback about productivity and how people feel at work, their engagement after joining the network or being part of it, or their managers? I'm just saying that because I've been diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago. Organizational development, but I've also trained as an ADHD coach. So I kind of made it more public at work, and I've got constantly people calling me, not only about themselves, even about their children, saying like, I think my child is ADHD or autistic or something. And they just come in to chat, and it opens up so much. I feel like people are more productive, more happy, more, but I just wonder if you noticed anything.
It's still early days, but yes, even when I said who would like to join, before we had a network, people came and talked, even through chat. And they just said, oh, it's just so nice to talk about these issues with another neurodivergent. You get me straight away. And even that seemed to have an effect. So just sharing and talking. And that's why we have a chat group, so we can just throw things in there, and meetings when we feel like it. So yeah, I've already seen really positive feedback on that. I think it's worth setting something up.
It would be great to join us, actually,
Yeah,
the network.
please join us.
Perfect.
Any questions about recruitment? I know there's some recruitment people in the office, in the room.
I have a couple of questions,
Please.
actually. So my first question is, you spoke about the spike profile.
Yes.
And I did it myself a couple of days ago. So you can get some insights, and it's a free tool, you can use it. You don't need to give any personal data, you don't need to say who you work for, what your title is. What was interesting is that it found my career path exactly. So it said learning and development, and I specialize in learning and development. So that was interesting. Now, my question is, I do like this kind of, and this is why we give these talks. This is why we include the topic in the agenda of diversity and inclusion, in the Diversity and Inclusion Conference, because we do want to raise awareness, but at the same time, I am always a bit concerned that people start self-diagnosing themselves or diagnosing others with neurodiversity without really knowing. Okay? So how can we go about it? If somebody is suspecting that they might be neurodiverse or they know somebody, what's the next step?
Well, first off, diagnosis is a touchy issue because human resources companies managers should not be doing diagnosis. So we have to take a look at it from a universal design principle. Okay? You need to create an environment that works for everyone, not just for a select group of people. That way, it negates the need for a diagnosis. Now, to your question, furthermore, in regards to self-diagnosis, yes, in some ways it can be potentially dangerous, but at the same time, we're seeing that a lot of people who are self-diagnosis, who end up getting a diagnosis, end up being correct. So they're on the same lines. When we talk about the studies that I've talked about, and particularly the second study, one of the authors, she always includes diagnosed and self-diagnosed in part of the study because they're experiencing the same things. But more importantly, it's not about whether or not a diagnosed person's ADHD and a self-diagnosis is ADHD. It's actually about the psychological impact that they're experiencing. And when they measure the psychological impact, it's the same. So it comes back to universal design principles.
Very good.
Now, and I want to say this. If someone does want to get diagnosed, two things. One, provide the resources, if you can, of where they can go to get diagnosis. And second of all, I know a lot of you gamers make more money than the non-gamers. Okay, I'm not too sure what your wages are, but getting a diagnosis is a cost factor. It has a huge impact on a family's income. And particularly if the dad's neurodivergent and the child's neurodivergent, that's 1,000 euros, 1,000 euros. If you're outside of Malta, it can go up to 3,000 euros. So what can we do to help alleviate the cost factor?
Perfect. Thank you very much.